This Week in Startups is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. Try ZipRecruiter for free. Go to ziprecruiter.com/twist. And Squarespace. Turn your cool idea into a new website. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code TWIST to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and it has been a busy week here in Silicon Valley and for the world, with technology having a huge impact on our democracy. Zuckerberg was called before Congress to testify, and it was pretty entertaining. We saw a lot of this. Let's play the clip.
Congressman, yes, Congressman, yes, Congressman, yes, Congressman, yes, Congressman.
Zuckerberg explaining to everybody that he has gone through massive media training. With me today, Brian Alvey, founder of Clipisode, and Iain Thomson from The Register. I think everybody was expecting Zuckerberg to have another panic attack and not be able to handle this. He has obviously become, I wouldn't say an excellent speaker, but this was, in my mind, a tremendous performance from somebody who, when he was starting Facebook, quite literally had a panic attack on stage with Kara Swisher and Walt Mossberg, and who has been considered kind of awkward, and I think people were expecting him to not be able to handle it, and he did the opposite. He, in fact, when they tried to give him a break, said, I don't need a break, I can keep going. Iain, what did you think of Zuck's testimony?
It was, it's clear he's obviously been press trained up the wazoo, and he kept it together, and he had his sort of, or speaking trained up there. But yeah, he kept it together. He didn't make any mistakes. He was very careful in his language. He came across as a weapons-grade wanker, in my opinion. But, you know, I mean, it was just what he said isn't going to get him into trouble. Basically, he winged it. He got away with it. End of story. He's going to be quite happy when he gets home this weekend.
Brian, a couple of things were notable to me. There was one exchange where they asked him what hotel he stayed in and if he wanted to share that. He refused and laughed. And also, he said that he had, I believe, changed his position, said they're responsible for the content. When you look at what's happened with Cambridge Analytica being able to essentially break the terms of service and take 50 million or 78 million, whatever it winds up being, profiles, is this Zuckerberg's fault? Is he responsible for people's data being compromised? Or is this what everybody should have known all along, and this is a bunch of just theater?
So I agree with that last part. It's everybody should know. You're giving up all your information. They're selling it as best they can in every direction they can. So that's just, you should just expect that. You should be a bit more savvy about what they're doing when they're doing that. I think on the hotel question, he should have said, I use an iPhone. Ask Tim Cook where I stayed last night. Just kind of throw that back in his face.
Answer.
Right?
Nice answer. Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Or you could ask the Secret Service, which obviously was there as well, or the CIA and the FBI, because they know where I am.
Right. So AT&T, like you name it, right? There's all these other people. Let's throw them under the bus too. But I think, we built The Daily a long time ago for Rupert Murdoch and sort of Steve Jobs. He had a hand in it. And when we did that, we had to deal with so many Facebook APIs, and we built out the Daily for Facebook. And we learned that working with all these different services, some of them price per API call. So you're actually incentivized to grab the data and never ask again. Keep it, hold on to it. So there's actually a technical side to all of this, which is it's really hard to trust that a service is going to be there at scale for you to ask all the time. And they make you jump through hoops to ask 8, 9, 10 different things to get the data you need. So I've actually lived in projects where even though it could be stale, it could be a few minutes old, you're kind of incentivized to keep the data.
And additionally, we've seen that people now, Brian Lamb did an excellent piece in the New York Times, and Josh, I think Constantine over at TechCrunch, were both looking at their own data being removed from the service. And it turns out on Android, they're tracking every single and storing every single phone call you've made.
Called mom.
They have all of your SMS messages if you happen to combine on Android your Messenger with your SMS, and that even when you think you've deleted stuff, you haven't. So that to me seemed like some interesting moments where Facebook or Zuck specifically, looked like he was not being completely honest with, the government officials during his testimony, but the journalists are finding more and more instances of Facebook keeping more than they should. And Zuckerberg had to backtrack and say, we're not going to connect our data with other data services anymore because they were looking at other third-party services. So it does feel like, to me, even though they didn't, based on their terms of service, necessarily dissuade people from sharing this information, and they have a good point there that people actively participated. There are some other things they're doing in the background that feel a little funky, and that kind of came out right now. So it feels like maybe Facebook's going to have to pull back 20% on their data gathering. What's going to change, Ian?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of cosmetic changes, but I mean, we don't even know what the metadata as well. We don't know where they're going with that. But I think Sheryl Sandberg hinted at this. They're going to have to take less data, which is going to hurt their revenue. So they're going to have to launch a paid service.
Well, she said absolutely not, that was not going to happen, right?
It's one of those things, you never believe anything until it's been officially denied.
Got it.
But the one question that they haven't answered in all this is, yes, we're going to pull back, we're going to use less data. That's going to hit their revenues, and Wall Street isn't going to like that.
Right.
And the question they haven't answered is where they make those revenues up. And a paid-for service, I think, makes a certain amount of sense in that.
I proposed on Twitter, and some people redesigned it for me, actually. Maybe we can pull up some of those designs, Austin, if you see them there, on my Twitter handle, where I retweeted them yesterday or the day before, where I said, hey, why don't they just ask people to re-opt in? And if they say, hey, would you like us to store your data? You can say yes or no, and for how long? And would you like to see ads and us to share your information with advertisers to make custom ads? And if you say no, it should say, okay, if you'd like to use the service for free, it's $5. If you'd like to use the service privacy guaranteed, it's $5 a month. Would you like to opt into this?
Well, that model's already in place with certain telcos.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Comcast do. I think it's Comcast or AT&T. You can opt to not have your data stored and collected for advertising purposes, and it costs you something like $30 a month.
Here's one of the designs, if you can just make it a little bit bigger on the screen. And this was one of them that came up. There's another one that's even better, but this one was like, hey, here's your, and I wrote this copy just on my Twitter. Would you like to keep your personal data to personalize our service, yes or no? Would you like to share your data with advertisers? No. How long would you like us to store your data? This would be if you give a roadblock like this and just ask 3 simple questions, I think this would get them out of a lot of trouble, because people would explicitly be opting in to customize their experience and for how long they want their data stored. And that would put it in control of the user, because Zuckerberg kept saying that users have control and they know what's happening here, but the truth is nobody reads the user agreements. This one was even better. Look at this one. Here's a mobile version. Allow Facebook to keep your personal data, join Facebook Premium, etc., and pay $5 a month. Brian, what do you think of this possible solution, and do you think it's something that Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg would ever consider?
Am I allowed to say on your show that I think it's terrible?
Yes, of course. I'm waiting for somebody to disagree with me.
I know, right? Yeah,
Please,
I'm going to be the first
Lord.
person ever to disagree with you. No, I don't think it's a good idea. He actually specifically addressed this in the testimony, where he said, they said, well, can you just not do targeting, not make the ads so good? He goes, yes, we can do that. Here's what will happen. He schooled them. You had a bunch of people who are mildly technical savvy asking him questions, and it's not really. It's like kindergartners asking how babies are made. You can give them like the junior answers, right? It really felt like that. Oh, let me explain to you.
2 people are in love.
Mommy and daddy, they love each other. They lay next to each other. 9 months later, the stork shows up, knocks on the door.
Yeah, they give each
so
other
these
a
are the
hug.
answers he gave them, and that was kind of the best they could get out of him. So he specifically answered this, and he said, if we don't do the targeting, if we don't do the stuff that we do, you know what's going to happen? And it was a genius answer. Small businesses are going to have to pay more for advertising. So instead of $20 to reach a bunch of people, which they can afford, it's the price of 2 pizzas, right? Now it's going to cost them $50 or $100. And basically threw back on Congress. Would you like your voters to pay more to sell their products and to do their jobs?
Right.
And he didn't say it that way, but that was the implied threat. The implied threat wasn't,
do you
we're gonna
hate
start
small
charging
businesses?
people for stuff. But it was, do you hate the economy? Would you like to see your voters suffer? And yeah, I guess we could do that if that's what you want. That was his answer.
What do you think of that?
Genius.
He was very smart in what he said and how he said it. It was also the fact he was going up against a bunch of people who, quite frankly, most of them wouldn't know a computer if it turned around and bit them on the backside.
Yeah.
He was very careful in what he said, but he has a point. Yeah, you can make the ads less targeted, but then fewer people are going to buy them and they're going to be more expensive.
I would say the average congressperson or senator or whoever was asking questions, I think their average knowledge level was as a grandparent looking at their grandkids sharing images. And they basically said that often.
Sure.
Like, I love sharing photos, but I'm a little bit concerned about the election being swung by this platform. I think as the Mueller investigation unfolds and more documents are revealed, that we're going to have a couple more shoes that are going to drop. If another Cambridge Analytica-like event occurs where people feel that data was stolen, there's certainly going to be a couple more of these. What impact do you think it will have on them as a company with regards to regulation? Are we going to see any kind of regulation here in the United States, or is it all going to be the EU, Brian?
Yeah, it's. I think things will happen. I think there's a little bit of theater to it, right? They have to show Congress has your best interest, voters. We're protecting you from the evil Facebook that did all this stuff. We fixed it by putting out regulation. I think that it's only going to build a bigger moat around what Facebook does. So some people have already predicted this. If you regulate it, now only Facebook, who's already there, who's already done it, who's already on the inside, who already has superpowers, nobody else is allowed to have superpowers. Okay, great. So Facebook's going to win everything. So I think it makes it harder to build a second Facebook. So when you talk about building a new one, competing with them, oh, sorry, there's new regulation that says you can't do all these things that kind of got them where they are.
Yeah, they're pulling up the ladder behind them.
That's it. They're pulling up the ladder. Great way to put it. They're pulling up the ladder behind them.
All right, when we get back from this quick break, we're going to talk a little bit about the Postal Service and Donald Trump attacking Amazon and Jeff Bezos relentlessly. But first, I want to tell you all about ZipRecruiter. Are you thinking about hiring? Well, posting to job sites and waiting and waiting and waiting for the right people to see it, that may not be your best move. ZipRecruiter has built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you, and they learn what you're looking for, identify people with the right experience, and they invite them to apply for your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire. 80% of employees who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through their site in just one day. ZipRecruiter even spotlights the strongest applications you receive, so you will never miss out on a great match. We use it. We love it here at Launch and Inside, and the right candidates are out there. You just got to use ZipRecruiter so you can find them quicker. Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs. So right now, I want my Twist listeners, you loyal listeners, to go try ZipRecruiter for free. Got nothing to lose. Go try it, and you will be amazed. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/twist. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TWIST. Twist. ZipRecruiter.com/twist. It is the smartest way to hire people. That's right. Thank you again, ZipRecruiter, for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Okay.
I'm going to check that out because we're recruiting at the moment. So.
Absolutely. Get in there. You will find some great ones. Just putting a cap in the Facebook stuff, it does seem to me that they're going to get away with it. The performance was so good, and the questions were so softball that combination of, hey, maybe some things happened on the fringes. We're going to get back to you on that. We're going to clean up your data. I think nothing changes for Facebook.
You and I have talked about this in the past, that anything worth gaming will be gamed.
Sure.
They have the best targeting platform in the universe.
Right.
It's going to be gamed. So, of course, there's going to be bad people in there. We're going to find them. We're going to get rid of them. It's going to be better. I'm not quitting Facebook.
Here's my request to my loyal This Week in Startups listeners. I know some of you understand the Facebook network really well. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go find these senators and women and congressmen who ask these questions. I want you to build targeted groups with their email addresses in them, like custom audiences. And then I want you to go try to find their IP addresses and track them and expose exactly how much privacy you can get from one of them. And then publish it. I will retweet it, write a blog post, and see if you can. Obviously don't give people's home address or whatever, but you could show how easy it is to game Facebook's ad network in order to expose the privacy of these senators, congressmen, etc. Maybe even the president or vice president. Go do that and show, because they lie over and over again, I felt, about how much targeting they can do. They say, oh, you can't target an individual. Well, what if you put 20 email addresses
We've just published research yesterday that shows that they can do exactly that.
Right.
Yeah, and so this lie has to be exposed, and I need my Twist listeners, somebody savvy in here, some hacker group, not to break into anybody, do it with completely legal means, but put 20 email addresses, 50 email addresses of people you know who are in California. Then take the senator or congresswoman from Alabama and then target those ads for a rate my congressperson or rate my senator or something. And then get their staff on there and figure out through the IP addresses on a dedicated site exactly how much privacy you can break using Facebook's tools so that we can show those senators and congressmen exactly how creepy this could be. Because they could do this. If they started tracking with geo-targeting and had people landing page and said like, rate, who was one of the, rate Orrin Hatch, you know? Or, you know, support Orrin Hatch. And then see if you can get Orrin Hatch himself or one of his staffers to click on the link and target them and then retarget them and show exactly what these tools can do. That would be for me, the way to solve this problem is to get those senators to see exactly how targeted they could be. And what if you got one of these senators and you got their browsing history or figured out how to retarget them on the web through like buttons, and then you had a series of sites that would be truly embarrassing, and then you had your Facebook tracking pixel on, and it was like, here's an erectile dysfunction page of, you know, how to get Viagra over the web or something, and then boom, they hit that, and you could show them that kind of data. That's what people don't understand is how you can use these tools. So I don't know why this hasn't happened yet.
No, it's good to come. I mean, that would be something which would really spur Congress into action. I mean, I think regulation is coming.
You do?
Yeah, I think there's...
In the United States?
Yeah.
What do you think it would be? What would be sensible in your mind?
It's not going to be as bad as GDPR, or at least as oppressive as GDPR.
GDPR, what do you think is oppressive about it? What are the standards going to be there? I'm not up to speed on it completely.
Well, GDPR is it enforces if you're taking in data or if you're handling data, then you have to have a certain level of security built into your infrastructure. You've got to have it encrypted. You've got to have a chief security officer who monitors the things, and then people have the right to request within 48 hours all the data that you have on them.
Right.
Now, what makes GDPR really interesting is the level of fines, because, you know...
It's a per individual fine, correct?
Yeah, and
Instance.
it's up to 4% of annual revenue, not profits, or 40 million euros, whichever is higher.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So it's going to start getting punitive because I think the EU has realized that if you don't make it punitive, people are just going to look at it as a tax,
business
not
expense.
a fine.
Right,
It's a business expense.
I can
It's
make
a
$1
line
billion
item.
and pay a $40 million tax.
Let's
You get
go.
a little
Yeah.
slap on the wrist.
All day long.
All day long, I would do that. Correct.
Absolutely. And by the way, GDPR stands for the General Data Protection Regulation, and it's the EU compliance for this. And the forcing people to give all their data within 48 hours, that is truly going to really change things. I think they need to also keep a window on how much data. I think they have to show everybody when they're using the service every quarter, every 90 days, they should be forced to put a roadblock. Click here to see your data and download it. Click here to not see your data and go on to the service. They should force these networks to make you hit a roadblock every 90 days to remind users and educate them and be proactive. And then it should also have, in that same process, say, I would like my data deleted right now.
Yeah.
And you hit yes. And then it sends you an email and it tells you it's deleted. And I want all of my history, everything you have on me deleted now. I still want to use the service, but I want everything wiped. And perhaps even a limit on how long stuff can be saved. So I would like to see all data removed every, I don't know, let's call it every year. That should be the default. Because in France, they don't keep your phone call logs and this kind of stuff for a very long time.
No.
My understanding is like, if you go and say, hey, can I see every phone call I made last year? They'd be like, no, of course we don't keep that. They're forced to wipe it. I don't know what the exact regulation is. What do you think about some common sense stuff like that, Brian?
So if they presented me with that and they were smart, they would say, here's all the stuff we know about you. Here's a button to delete all of that. Here are the ads we're currently showing you. Here's what the ads are going to look like after we remove all of your targeting data. They're going to be terrible. Would you like to see terrible ads from now on because we know nothing about you? Or would you like to see really, really, really good ads for these things that you care about? There was a tweet yesterday where somebody said, I hate all these companies. They suck. They've got all my data, their privacy, the stuff. I hate it. Oh my God, Spotify just recommended this song to me. It's amazing. How did it know what I like?
How did it know?
So do you want to give up the ability for Spotify to tell you about the hot new song you're going to play on loop this weekend? by flushing your data. As long as they say that second part and they say, here's how bad Facebook is going to be without your data, nobody's going to click the button. I'm not.
I don't know. I have a feeling people would.
I think if they gave them the option right now, a lot of people would, which is why Facebook is going to stall on this for as long as humanly possible.
I actually
until
don't
people forget.
think this. I think this could actually work in Facebook's favor, in that if they gave people the ability to pay $5 a month, which might be a little less than they make. I think they're making, I don't know if it was $20 a quarter, 20. No, they make more than 20 a year. It's 20 a quarter, I believe. So I think they're making about $80 a year off of people. So that's about $7 a month. And we'll check those facts right now. But the last time I heard, in the United States, it was $20 a user per quarter or something. And then outside the U.S., it's much cheaper. So they would have to do this. But I'm guessing less than 5% of people decide to pay for it, to have an ad-free experience or whatever. But this would be a fine solution.
They have to tie it into a comparable service where, like Spotify, $10 a month, Google Photos, $10 a month. We're going to give you those things both for $9 a month. Would you pay for Facebook? So if they tied it into services like that, I think they can get money out of people.
So here's the average revenue per user. It's $20, but that is the global revenue per user, I believe. We're looking at Statistica. And so I believe it's like maybe $5 or $10 outside the U.S., and then in Europe and the United States, it's much higher. So if you do U.S., I don't think $5 would work, because I think they made like 15. I think they're making a little bit more. But even if they did, there would be such a small amount. The goodwill and the lack of fines and the lack of regulation, it would be just fine overall.
How many products have you seen that are at scale that decide to charge more, that go from free to paid, or from paid to more paid?
Netflix has added $1 every 6 months to a year.
I knew you'd have an answer, but
Prime has raised its rates.
Right.
Prime has as well, but not. But your point is correct. Some people do not have pricing power, and it would be very hard for HBO or cable or Verizon to raise their prices right now. And in fact, people like Verizon are now lowering their prices because they have this, pressure of people from, I think, Google. Fi is cheaper, and T-Mobile. They've had to come up with some competition has worked there. Okay, let's talk about Amazon for a second. The president's been going after Amazon. He's going after the U.S. Postal Service. What are your thoughts on this one? Is the Postal Service, which delivers like, I believe, 30-40% of all packages for Amazon, and they seem to have given them some sort of a discount, but there is a U.S. postal regulation, a bill that passed that said they cannot ship packages at a loss for anybody.
Right.
So they would, if it's true that they're losing money on Amazon, they would have broken the law, the people at the post office. What do you think about these attacks, Brian? The president attacking Amazon on his Twitter to say Amazon is not paying taxes, which is patently false, and that the post office is losing money on them, which would mean the people in the post office have broken the law.
Yeah.
And here's the actual tweet. I am right about Amazon costing the United States Post Office massive amounts of money for being their delivery boy, which is a weird thing to say, because to say that the post office is a delivery boy, that's kind of their purpose in the world, is to deliver stuff. Amazon, it's kind of accurate. I mean, it's gender specific, but that's like saying UPS is your delivery person. Yes, they are. Amazon should pay these costs plus and not have them borne, Jason Bourne, B-O-U-R-N-E, by the American taxpayer, many billions of dollars. Post office leaders don't have a clue, or do they? I mean, these tweets get better and better.
You can say that, sure. Yeah, nice.
I've got to say, coming from the President of the United States, it's slightly disturbing. It's not exactly dignified.
So there's a lot to unpack in all of this, right? What do these things cost? How much they do? So I was curious, what does, Amazon uses UPS a lot. So I was wondering, is Amazon half of what UPS makes every year? So they're between 5 and 10% of the total amount of money that UPS makes. So they don't really own UPS outright. They're never going to buy UPS, right? Everybody else uses them. If you look at the stuff that they're doing at the post office, like you said, there's a regulation. You can't ship it at a loss. You could still actually, though, make more money at it. The one thing that's actually happening is delivering packages is a growing business for the post office, while delivering letters is a dying business for the post office.
Right.
So Amazon is actually contributing to the growth sector of the growth business line that the post office has. The future of what they do, boxes still have to be delivered. Letters don't, since faxes,
your bank statement
email,
doesn't
all that
need
stuff,
to
are going away.
Yeah.
And the post office, how much mail do you get that's stuff you didn't ask for, that's fat catalogs?
98%.
98%. I have friends in LA who all they want to see is the post office go away. They think that's the biggest blight on the planet is the fact that everybody gets cataloged, 5-6 catalogs a day, and they go straight into our recycling, which I hope gets recycled, but it's all junk. It's all bad. So,
Iain, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I've got a personal stake in this because my brother-in-law's a postman. So I was actually talking about this.
Here in the States?
Yeah.
And what's his take?
His take is that he hates Amazon because it used to be his job was delivering letters, and now he's got to deliver these.
So he's in
bulky
denial.
Huge bulky packages,
Yes.
but and also it's really Amazon is sort of insisting on certain levels of standards, and when you've got to carry a 10-pound bag of puppy chow up someone's gate, it's not particularly
It's
pleasant.
real work.
But,
hard.
all this stuff, okay, he says Amazon are dodging their taxes. Well, yeah, that makes them smart, to use the Trump's own words. But, I mean, it's... Amazon has been the savior for the post office. They've actually managed to bring some stuff in. What's slightly disturbing, and we're seeing reports that, in fact, Amazon bulk bought postal delivery services from the post office and then started reselling them to some of their sellers at a slightly higher price. Now, what I'd like to see there is the post office taking back control and doing the reselling itself and taking the profits in.
All right, let me tell you what's happening here. This is the actual truth, and all due respect to your brother. Post office needs to be deprecated. It needs to be slowly wound down, to Brian's point about the junk mail, to about 5 to 10% of its footprint. I'm just picking a number here.
Mondays and Thursdays only. Is that what
I say once a week. It should go down to 3 days a week, then down to once a week, and then if you live in a city or within X distance of a city, it goes away. And then anybody who's this far out of a city, 10, 20 miles, it still exists there because there is something to be said for people living in rural places to be able to communicate with the rest of the world to receive packages, because it would be quite unfair. But the idea that we're subsidizing people who live in the country for their packages in this day and age, why should people in cities have to subsidize the ability of a package being delivered to somebody who's 30 miles or 20 miles out? It's charming and interesting, but we shouldn't do that. We should subsidize getting them broadband. That, to me, makes sense.
You've got 5% of Americans who aren't online and show no interest in being online, so they're going to have to be catered to somehow. I mean, it's not all electronic these days. There are still a lot.
So once a week.
Yeah, I mean,
you can live with it. I mean, there's nothing that's coming that's that important that you need it that week. I mean, except for maybe medicine, which you should be able to then drive to get, or we'll send a drone eventually. So what about like a 10-year plan? There's, I think, 500,000 people who work for the post office. This is a large, I mean, they're one of the top employers.
UPS has like 20,000. I mean, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and it will never, ever be profitable. They just have to have like a 10-year wind down or to this deprecation, and then give those people retraining or pay for their salaries for 5 or 10 years,
Well, Congress is already doing its best to bugger up the Postal Service by insisting they front load all their pension obligations.
$38 billion.
Yeah,
yes.
which no other company in the United States has to do. I don't understand why.
Well, in fairness,
we don't, because it's going away. You might as well front load it, or they're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also, where do pensions still exist? I mean, the concept of a pension, when people live 80, 90 years and they retire at 60 or after 30 years, the only places I see pensions being something we need is with people who actively risk their lives in a very dangerous profession. Cop, firefighter,
Podcaster.
podcasters
Right.
and the like. All right, when we get back, we're going to talk about the YouTube shooting. It's obviously a very touchy subject, but I have some very strong feelings on it. I know Brian probably has some as well when we get back on This Week in Startups. But first, I want to tell you about Squarespace, which we use all the time. Go to launchfestivalsydney.com. And you will see our most beautiful recent site. Go to founder.university, go to angel.university. We use it all the time. Why do we use it? Because we can make a beautiful website in minutes. And you can use it too to promote your physical or online businesses. You can sell products there now. They've got all the e-commerce features built in, all the metrics built in, SEO is built in. Video is built in. They just make these beautiful templates, and they keep adding features over and over again. And they charge the same price. That's the amazing part about software as a service and a fine company like Squarespace, is that they keep investing in making a better experience adding features, making it more reliable, having that 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week award-winning customer service, but the price stays the same, and you get a better and better deal. Built-in search engine optimization I talked about, and you can buy tons of domains there. That's kind of a new thing. They have over 200 extensions. So you don't need to have two different providers, one to do your domain, one to do your website. You put that all together. It works super easily. And of course, everything is optimized for mobile right out of the box. So here is your call to action. Go check out squarespace.com and get a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code TWIST and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You can easily create a website for yourself and you can make it yourself. That's the key thing you have to remember. And you can make it stand out. Standing out with these beautiful templates and designs. Squarespace, I say Squarespace, you think beautiful website that you can put together in just minutes. It's a wonderful, wonderful product, and we love using it. It's really been a game changer for our business. Okay, before we went to break, I brought up the YouTube. Now, this is a little bit of old news, but Brian, you and I have both worked with YouTube for years. We know a lot about it, and so I just wanted to get your quick take on this. YouTube, obviously, tragically, and a lot of information has come out since, tragically, there was a shooting on campus. Thankfully, nobody died. Obviously, brings up a little bit about gun control, brings up a little bit about the security level that we have at offices. But I think the big discussion, which people have not had yet, and is a very hard discussion to have, is, and again, mental illness, another sort of big sweeping discussion. This person was obviously mentally ill. Anybody who hops the fence and kills innocent people is likely suffering from some mental illness. Putting those three very important issues aside, gun control, mental illness, and the security of these buildings, the reason this person stated they did this was because they were deplatformed and demonetized. Now, we have to start with the caveat that this was a mentally ill person, clearly, from everything we've read, that they were suffering from some form of mental illness. But many people, myself, other top YouTube stars, Casey Neistat, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, and other top people have all complained about the nature of YouTube changing their rules in terms of sharing money. And this deplatforming of people, blocking them from having their ability to promote their videos, it seems to be a key issue. Now, a reasonable person would not kill people over it, but I do think that there is an important discussion to be had here, and I'm curious, Brian, what your thoughts are. Can we make a connection between YouTube's way of dealing with partners, or Google's, for that matter, and AdSense sharing and SEO, or Facebook changing their rules, and what happened here, or is that just a jump that we should not make?
So it's a very easy jump to make because it's why she did it, right? I think you have to look at, there aren't that many networks that get their superstars paid. And I've looked into this a lot, right? YouTube is a big one. They write you a check. Vine never wrote you a check. Vine is gone, right? Their superstars fled. So when you have something like that, you're going to have a whole bunch of people, all walks of life, rich, poor, whatever. And when you make a decision that changes materially whether somebody's going to pay their rent next month or not, or eat next month or not, that's a lot of responsibility. So, hats off to them for being the place that makes this possible. So many other networks don't pay their superstars.
Facebook does not share revenue right now.
Correct. They can make or ruin, media careers and stuff like that, right? Brands and stuff. They do that a lot. But it's not the same as this, where there's a person who can get $50 to $500 to $5 million off of the platform. And when you take that away, it's a serious thing. And like you said, when somebody's desperate, when somebody's not going to be able to eat, you make weird decisions, bad decisions. She made a bad one.
Ian,
I don't know the answer.
And I think it's when you have somebody who's mentally ill, which seems to be the case here. I don't know if we can confirm that or not, but certainly I think it's worth putting on the table as a potential discussion point now that a little bit of time has passed. Ian, what are your thoughts about the deplatforming of people and the demonetization of people? Because this is something that we're seeing over and over again. People are being banned from Twitter, they're being banned from Facebook, and these were supposed to be open platforms, and they designed them to be open revenue sharing, so these companies benefited from being open. Now they're removing that ability for their own self-interest. The interest of YouTube is to only have higher-end people. They print money at YouTube, so they don't want to have to deal with weird content anymore because they got there. Again, talking about pulling up the ladder behind them, YouTube is at critical mass. They have escape velocity, so they're kind of saying, let's shed this bottom rung of providers. Anybody under 10,000 views or under this number of hours of views in the last year, we don't need them anymore. Let's throw them under the bus. Let's just totally take away their ability to make any money.
Yeah, it's cutting their own nose off to spite their faces, basically, because that's where the next generation of YouTubers is going to start out. And if you start cutting these people off at the base, you're going to be left with an increasingly aging number of superstars. But also, for the major earners, I think the real takeaway of this is don't rely on YouTube. Diversify your platform. It's like that. Who was the idiot who saw the suicide in Japan and
the idiot.
Logan Paul.
The idiot.
He has since diversified. He's got clothing lines going on, selling to other idiots, and he's got various other things, other irons in the fire. And I think the message, if you're a superstar, is don't expect this to last. They can take it away from you at any time. So you better get your ducks in a row in terms of getting other revenue streams sorted out. But long term, I mean, I wonder also how they're doing this, because is it a human making this decision? Are they chucking an algorithm at it to see what is the most efficient way to get rid of these people? It does seem to be massively mishandled.
Other thing that I thought was interesting was they took all of her videos down off of Instagram and off of YouTube after it happened, which kind of kept the story from being about this topic. And then it sort of took a little while for, I think, those videos to resurface of her being so angry at them. It almost felt like they were trying to cover it up to a certain extent.
They've said, even at Twitter, they've said, like, it's our policy. Like, once somebody does something crazy, we don't want to give them any more visibility. We don't want their stuff out there. We're going to... Because now you get, 10 more people who are on the border who are thinking about stuff.
It might induce
they watch
people.
her
That seems like a wise
complaining about
decision, in
this.
fact,
Now they're, like, inflamed. So I think it's a good idea to hide it.
You see, this is standard opera, because I've had problems in the past where I've done stories. We did a story about a YouTube video where some kids were abusing a mentally ill homeless person.
Oh, yes.
And now
that was tragic,
I went through to contact the local police department, said that they were looking into it, went through to YouTube, and they're like, show us the video, we'll take it down. It's like, well, if you take it down, the police can't see it. Show us the video. And they just would not get off this. And it was like, we eventually got accused of being unprofessional because we wouldn't allow them to destroy evidence.
It is tragic, and for the people at YouTube, obviously, our hearts go out to you. It's horrible, but I do think there is some care that needs to be, and I'm sure they're doing this now, retroactively, is really thinking, hey, we have to be very careful making these decisions because people's livelihood is depending on it. And I can tell you, those companies, having dealt with this exact issue, myself with Mahalo previously, and then doing inside YouTube videos, it's incredibly frustrating for me to have dealt with them. And I am a known person who was in the partnership program with them.
Right.
In other words, YouTube was paying us $1.5 million to make our videos in advance. We were in the upper echelon. And I felt like I kept getting jerked around by them and couldn't get a clear answer, and that they would stonewall us when we did have answers about SEO. And we did have this. And that's me. A Silicon Valley insider I felt abused by them, to be candid. And so, again, none of this rationalizes this horrible behavior. But I do think that people at those companies who have so much power over this anonymous partnership workforce have to really think much more tactfully and much more deftly about when they do make these changes. Because when you see all the Logan Pauls or Casey Neistats and other people who are making serious livings of it, they were also complaining about these changes.
Right.
And those people are well off. They do have, to Ian's point, multiple pokers in the fire. Those people were outraged. Again, I don't want to obsess over the issue, but I do think that is the thing that those companies need to really think about, is how hated they could be because of these things. Tesla has upset the NTSB, according to reports. They sent a letter to Elon removing Tesla from the Autopilot accident investigation that happened on March 23rd here in San Francisco, the Bay Area, on the 101. They say Tesla is sharing too much information too quickly. And Tesla says it removed itself because the NTSB was restricting it from sharing info before the probe ends. and they accuse the NTSB of being duplicitous in arguing the agency released statements about the crash while telling Tesla not to.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this, Brian?
You know, I don't have as many Teslas as you do. But
You have to make it a class issue. I also wrote a piece about defending self-driving cars last week.
no,
May or
I
may
love
not
that.
have
That I'd rather talk about. I have a lot of thoughts about, you know, the you know, what humans versus AI eventually.
Okay, let's get
everything's
to it.
automated. Well, no, eventually everything's automated. So it's going to happen. So in terms of your self-driving car thing, every single thing, technology isn't, you know, phones or chips. Technology is, you know, the wheel, right? Anything that automates something that you used to have to do yourself, and now you have a tool to do it, right? And everything's going to be automated. So why isn't driving? Driving is like one of the, not to say it's easy, and not to say people aren't, you know, dying or there's crashes
It's
happening.
road.
It's early, right? But yeah, where are the lines on the street? What does a stop sign look like, right? What is everybody else at a four-way stop doing? When I take my kids to school, we have so many of these like crazy death intersections that are really, really crazy. And I'm explaining that one shouldn't have gone. It was that one's turn, right? And I'm talking this out
People
with them.
don't know, still to this day, do not know how to navigate an
They
intersection.
don't. We need more rotaries in this country. No. So that whole process of the decision making that goes into an intersection and the decision makings that go into driving all day long will eventually all be automated. Nobody will have to think about these things.
What are your thoughts on the specifically Autopilot, maybe the Uber, pedestrian fatality? What are your thoughts generally? What are your thoughts specifically?
Well, I think I agree with you that everything is going to be automated, but it's going to be a rocky road getting there. And I think part of this is the self-driving car, the car manufacturer's own fault, because they've been explicitly selling this all along as this is a safety issue. This is going to save lives. It's ready for deployment, and it patently isn't. I mean, you just wander around the mission and see some of these automated cars crashing all the time. It's hilarious. But I mean, there is the downside of this in that, yeah, people are getting killed and people are getting injured. And I think Tesla in particular is trying to take back the initiative on this. They've issued a couple of statements in the last couple of days that are essentially saying, look, this guy screwed up. He didn't have his hands on the wheel. He wasn't using the car as we recommend it. You can't honestly expect us to be liable every time somebody doesn't read the manual.
And that, to me, resonates as true. And that was the point of my piece. I looked at the 3 accidents with Autopilot and the 1 fatality in the Uber case. And obviously, I'm an interested party in the Uber case because I'm an investor in the company. I also, I think, through mutual funds, have Tesla shares and Google shares, for that matter. So putting aside that conflict, which people might point out, in each of these Autopilots, I want to start with those, the first one that occurred in Florida, the person had some large number of seconds and might have been watching Harry Potter and didn't attempt to stop and didn't have their hand on the wheel. In China, they hit a stopped. Again, the person didn't attempt. They don't have full data on that one, but the person slams. There's a dash cam video. They slam into the back of a street cleaning truck on the highway that has no blinkers on and no. I mean, in China, I guess rules are less enforced, and that one doesn't seem to be Tesla's fault. And in this case, the person is a very subtle point. There's a setting which I used today in the Model 3 and I used yesterday in the Model X because I use self-driving every day. Mm-hmm. Autopilot, I should say. An Autopilot lets you stay in the lane and does adaptive cruise control. 2 features that exist in many other cars, candidly. You can set the distance between the car in front of you in all these adaptive cruise control. He had it set at 1. I believe he was going 85 miles an hour, and he didn't have his hands on the wheels. Now, it is tragic that he died. And additionally, the embankment or whatever it was, the median he crashed into did not have the cones because it had been another crash. So they didn't have that compression cone structure that would have likelihood saved his life. He hit it so fast and so hard at the center of the car. The car went on fire, and this was a really violent crash. Smart people do stupid things. And we have to really look at each of these instances and say, is this a smart person doing something risky, or is this a dumb person doing something dumb, as we might expect them to? In this case, it's clearly a very smart person. It's an Apple engineer, from what I understand, testing the technology's limits. And the reason I say testing the technology's limits is one thing that came up in none of these stories is that a new update got pushed to Teslas just last month. I just got it like 2 weeks ago on my Model X. And it's the new version of self-driving. And it keeps you from ping-ponging in the lane. It just really locks in. And in all the videos online, it locks in perfectly when you engage it on an off or on ramp. I tried this the last 2 weeks. It is unbelievable how much better Autopilot went from these two releases. And so I think what happened here was this might have been an Apple engineer who really understood what this is capable of and then pushed the limits of the technology and was actually testing it. Now, I'm really making some jumps here, but I'm making those jumps based upon my personal experience that whenever I get an update to it, I want to see what it can do. That is human nature. If I give you a plane that now had a new feature, you might try the new feature. They're giving you new features in the car every 90 days. I think this person might have been, clearly they were pushing the envelope. I think the reason they might have been pushing the envelope is because of the new software.
Also, the standard engineer's desire just to fiddle with things and see what happens. I don't know. I think there are some significant problems in terms of, you mentioned the stopping distance particularly, and as someone who wasn't raised driving on freeways over here and who does keep a sensible stopping distance and then watches 2 or 3 cars try and jam themselves in there, I should imagine that's got to be, you've got to start playing around with the settings, otherwise it will make driving incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, 1 car length per 10 miles. Isn't this like obvious that?
Yeah, that's certainly what we would thought.
Do you think Autopilot should be paused, Brian? Do you think that these 3 deaths that seem to all involve the common thread of not being Autopilot's fault, but people being more aggressive with the technology, do you think that should essentially mean we can't have nice things like this, that we need to take them away?
No, not across the board. I'm sure if somebody has a self-driving program that's really not ready for prime time and they were being aggressive about it, let's say there's 5 companies doing it and 1 was way out there, sure, yeah, slow them down, make them pause, make them stop in a certain state. But in general, no, I don't think it's the future. It's if it was good enough to get to where it is now, I think it's going to be fine.
I want to pull up the Uber video of the driver, if you can, Austin, and this is...
I've watched this a lot.
I've watched this one a
too.
lot, and this is particularly troubling for me because Uber just went from, my understanding, and Google as well, went from having 2 safety drivers in the front seat to 1. And the complaint from people who are in these self-driving tests in Arizona is it is monotonous and boring because these are so good. And it's very difficult to watch this. If you have a problem watching something violent, don't watch this video. They don't show the actual connection, but here we're watching the interior, and clearly this person is not looking at the road. They're bored, looking at the road, looking down, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Oh my God. I just counted it out loud. That was at least 5 seconds, maybe 6, of not looking at the road before the accident.
At 45 miles an hour.
35 to 45, something in that range. Which also leads me to believe, why is it even going 1 mile over the speed limit? I think it was 38.
Oh, no, it was actually within the speed limit.
It was within the speed limit. Okay. So well within the speed limit. Obviously, this person is at fault for crossing the street.
In the dark.
In the dark.
Yep.
And it's tragic to speak this way of the dead, obviously. Like, placing blame on the dead is not a good feeling, but people do sometimes make mistakes or have lapses in judgment. I have done stupid things in my youth, crossing the street in New York with Brian, specifically. But this test driver clearly was playing Candy Crush or SMSing. I can tell that look on the eyes because we see it every day on the roads, don't we? When you look over at the car next to you, how many times have you seen this?
You know what's really weird is we went to Disney World maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, and we were in one of the buses. They pick you up at the airport in the bus, and they take you to Disney World. You don't have to rent a car, right? You're done. When you're in the bus, you're higher than everybody. You see into everybody's lanes. You can see them drinking beer in Florida, right? Like you can see them all on their phones. So it's like 50% are distracted drivers on their phones.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And I know a lot of people now, people you know too, who've been hit crossing the street, who had the right of way, and somebody wasn't paying attention, and they were lucky to survive because it was 45 miles an hour.
Oh, right. We do know somebody who that happened
to.
Yeah,
we have a blogger friend, but I also have a really personal trainer friend, and she survived a thing. She was walking with her dog and hadn't taken her ID out that morning. She's actually on another friend of yours podcast soon. So anyway, it's a lot of it's huge, and nobody's looking at where they're driving. So bring on the self-driving cars as fast as you can, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, already the statistics show Autopilot is 4 times, 5 times safer. I think as we transition to this technology, we have to take a fresh set of eyes on safety in general. people die because of speed. I think we should put speed limiters on cars if we really want to be safe. The fact that we can sell cars that go 150 miles an hour on roads, when we could cap them at some absurd speed, 100.
They have them on U-Hauls, 65. You can't go over that, even down a hill.
In a U-Haul today.
Yeah, U-Haul truck
and
you rent.
in trials in Canada, they've now put regulators on Canadian trucks, in some Ottawa, I think it was. They saw fatalities go down 23 to 75%. It's obvious that speed is one of the major contributors, as well as distraction, as well as alcohol. We need to attack these on all fronts. We do not punish people severely enough when they get caught distracted driving.
Yeah.
If you are using your phone, if your car was impounded for 30 days, and your phone was impounded for 30 days.
That's actually the bigger punishment. Take away my car, no problem, whatever.
I can get an Uber with my phone.
But don't take away my phone, exactly. Right.
Can you imagine, and I don't know what the justification is on a legal basis, if the ACLU would have a problem with this or whoever, if I was mayor or governor or God king of whatever region of the world, I would set a law. You get caught looking at your phone while driving, if we have it on tape, and I would make police cars to the van, to your point, that have cameras. We get you on tape looking at your phone. Your car and your phone are impounded for 30 days. You do it again. Now it's 6 months. You do it again. You lose your license. You lose your phone. You lose your car. We're auctioning them off and giving the proceeds. People, why don't we have common sense, hardcore regulation like this, Ian?
Well, I think that because the politician that introduced that would shortly be lynched about a month afterwards by angry voters. I think we could.
So no courage.
Well, yeah, basically. But I think we could take a lesson from countries like Finland on this. They have a very interesting scheme when it comes to traffic offences. You don't have a set fine. You're fined a number of days' salary from that year. So, for example, if you're caught speeding, you're fined like 2 days' salary. Now, there's a great Nokia executive who got a $400,000 fine
I heard about this.
for driving his Harley-Davidson at 10 miles over the speed limit, because he'd happened to cash in 20 million euros worth of shares that year. Now, he got it fixed on appeal, but he's still, I mean, I've interviewed the guy.
So they've made it a percentage.
Yes, they make it a percentage of your annual earnings.
So it's not a tax you can ignore kind of thing. Like, it's
Right.
just $200.
Because
Well, no,
I
for
see-
rich people, it is like, if I get a $200 or $300 speeding ticket, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why people,
There's no
And
don't
even
have license
now,
plates, right.
if I get $1,000 more on my insurance, I'm like, who cares? You know, like literally that doesn't impact me anymore. It did 10 years ago. It doesn't impact me now. So it should be proportional, and there should be something.
I mean,
just much more punitive.
It's been really, really effective at curbing this because, yeah, we all know people who've got like 3 or 4 tickets and it's just, it's another ticket. What the hell? So I think something like that could really work. But
What do you
taking
think
away
about that,
people's
Brian?
cars.
What would you say about taking away people's cars? You don't agree with it for 30 days?
Honestly, because that's going to mean a lot of people losing their jobs.
Right. It's a hard
What about
hardship.
taking the bus?
It's a hard
or Uber?
Well, if you're a delivery driver, though, then...
Oh, I see. If you're a delivery driver, your profession is to do that. That's like saying a pilot shouldn't lose his pilot license for being drunk in their car and their pilot.
Well,
They should know better than anybody.
yes, true. But I mean, if you've actually got to get to work and there's no... Because, I mean, you say take the bus because we live in
Uber
a
X
city which actually has
has a
decent
bus.
public transport
Yeah.
system. But if you live out
All right,
in the middle
maybe you
of
get some
nowhere-
appeal for that or something.
Yeah, but I
Maybe
mean,
there'll be an appeal.
you need to stiffen up. It horrifies me the number of distracted drivers you see on the road.
This is such a failure of leadership amongst politicians. They just need to say, this is the year this is going to end distracted driving. And if you're under the age of 21 and you do this, you should just lose your license until 21. That's it. One strike, you're done. Because these young kids do not care. I watch young kids doing it. I've watched ride-sharing drivers on their phone to a level that made me uncomfortable. I'm not talking about...
Yeah.
I'm not talking about using it to pick up the next ride. I'm talking about it like I've seen people like changing the music or hitting an SMS, and I'm like, dude, come on. There's another person in the car who's the customer paying you to not do. I mean, it's one thing to do SMS. When I literally had an Uber driver once that was SMSing, and I said, I think you should keep your eyes on the road.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, sorry. I was like, yeah, we're on the freaking 405. We're going 65 miles an hour, and you opened your SMS. Kind of dangerous. Hey, this is particularly disturbing. You may have seen this. Sinclair is a broadcasting group that owns a ton of stations, and they are asking the anchors to read specific scripts that are coming down from, I believe, the corporate offices in order to push a specific agenda that the corporate owners have. And here is the video that Deadspin decided to make.
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility
is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and false news.
So what people are disturbed about is the content, is the, that somebody's using this to say there's fake news out there, and they're appealing to a very specific set of people.
Right.
So they're pissed off about the message. But these videos have been made for years and years and years. Conan O'Brien does a thing where he says, you think mainstream media isn't on the take? Let me show you this. And they pull up every single 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock news show saying the exact same thing about Halloween, so we're just around the corner. Are you scared? I'm scared. And they piece them together, and there's 50 networks. So there are content services that send things out to radio morning shows that used to fax them out the jokes, and they would all do their bits before they were all nationwide when they were in the local markets. So you have the same thing. You could have jump cut, 100 of these things together in the 80s from radio morning shows. Conan O'Brien does this over and over and over again with people talking about it was Halloween or July 4th or something.
Yeah.
It's the exact same script. Are you scared? Yeah, I'm scared. And then they go into their thing. It's been done forever. What people are pissed off about is that it's being
there's a
used
political agenda
to push the fake news
FCC
thing.
is not going to take any action or investigate for distorting news coverage, but that's Ajit Pai who
who basically has never met a telco or broadcaster that he didn't like and was willing to bend over for.
Yeah.
So it's Pai is just at the FCC at the moment, and you saw this at the NAB show this week, where you got two FCC members, Pai and one of the Democratic ones, just laying into each other. The minority member of the FCC was just like, this is dangerous for democracy. We've got First Amendment rights that needs protecting. And Pai was just like, it's nothing to worry about. We're just modernising the platform. Don't look behind the curtain. It was a pathetic performance.
Anything else going on in your life, Ian? Any other stories you were covering that we didn't cover today?
Well, we've got tomorrow. Next week's going to be a big security week. So we've got B-Sides and RSA coming to town. So
Got it.
B-Sides is the one to go to because they're actually doing something interesting. RSA is
B-Sides as opposed to NSA's conference. These are security RSA. These are security conferences. What is the B-side? I don't even know what that is.
B-Sides was originally sort of stuff that didn't get into RSA, and now it's stuff that's better than RSA because it's done by actual hackers. And RSA.
Where does that occur?
It's just down by the Metreon. Tickets are now sold out, but RSA is just a sales show these days.
Got it.
There's very little original research being published. And they sell off a lot of their keynotes. So, of course, there is also the RSA show, because I don't know if you heard about this. RSA, when they put out their original keynote speaker, had one woman on it. And their argument was, well, there aren't many women in InfoSec. So a whole bunch of people got together, and now they're holding their own one-day conference with 14 female speakers and one male speaker.
So they flipped it.
Yeah.
Flipped the ratio. Beautiful. Hey, Brian, you recently launched a Clipisode. Tell everybody, get a little plug in here for a Clipisode and how people should use it.
Yeah, so here's exactly how Ian should use it.
Got it.
So he wants to make video shows on his Twitter, his Facebook, Instagram stories, you name it. He asks a question in the app. You're the only person that needs the app. So if you were to redo this show and ask a question about, let's say, I don't know, what question would you ask? What's your news thing you would ask a bunch of peers or your audience?
Or the security conference next week.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which conference would you be going to next week?
Yeah, so which of these conferences are you going to attend? The one with 14 women and one guy, the one with 14 guys and one woman. You let me know. You record that. It's 6, 8, 10 seconds of video. You then share that out to the world as a link on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your company Twitter, swipe up on an Instagram story. You text me and Jason, because we have very strong opinions about females being on stage and not being represented enough. I get that link on my phone, I click it, my camera magically turns on, I download nothing. I send you back a video that's like a video voicemail, and you include that in your show. That show all gets branded with your company, with your show, with
the
register.co.uk.
register.co.uk.
Correct.
Yeah.
Register.co.uk. It's the security series sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts. Boom. And you hit publish on that. Those videos all get slammed together, and you run them across all your networks.
I'll check that out, yeah.
Thanks.
So you can make your own video show. A good question might be, who was your favorite speaker this week after the conference?
Yeah.
Or you could do something like, what do you think was the most important hack of the year? which hack had the most impact on InfoSec, et
Oh yeah,
cetera.
before, during, and after the show, you can ask who else are you excited about seeing, and then during and after the show, you can say, what's the one wow moment where you were like, thank God I flew here from Japan to go to this conference because I met somebody, heard something on stage. Anyway,
Okay,
that's how it works.
wrapping up, I just want to say to everybody, I will look forward to seeing you, and Brian's coming too, to Launch Festival Sydney. We're going to be coming out to Sydney in June on the 19th and the 20th with the Startup Safari on the 21st. We're also going to do an Angel University on the 18th for angel investors there. Happy to announce, I need a little... what is that? Timpani when they go Timpani. 1,500 founders got free tickets to Launch Festival Sydney, and they are sold out. All the free tickets are sold out. Not technically sold out. They're filled. They've been given out. If you want to buy a ticket, go to launchfestivalsydney.com, and you can buy a VIP pass or a summit pass. They're very reasonably priced, a couple $100, and we break even on these events and do it to inspire innovation and support founders. So we look forward to seeing you there. We're going to have a startup competition with Frontier Tech, which is things like robots and VR, AR, things that are not yet in the mainstream. And we're going to have a blockchain cryptocurrency competition and a year one competition, which is products that are under a year old, like Clipisode. The winner gets a spot in the launch incubator and a $100,000 investment from yours truly. We need people to apply and to present their companies at this competition. So go to launchfestivalsydney.com/competition. Think about that. 1,500 free tickets given out, and we're going to invest $100,000 in one of the company. We're literally going to pay that company to come out. And so thank you to our friends at the New South Wales government, via Destination New South Wales, and the Department of Industry and Business Events Sydney. This fine group of organizations were able to underwrite this event and gave us the ability to create Sydney's largest and best technology event in history and do it for free. Think about how generous and kind that is. So I really want to thank them, and our team is so excited to go throw a shrimp on the Barbie and go down under. And I'm excited.
Don't say that down
Don't
there.
say that down there.
Do not.
Aussie, Aussie, Oz.
Oi,
oi, oi.
It's a prawn. It's a prawn. This is one thing that winds the Aussies up, not something wrong.
Prawn?
It was only that bloody Paul Hogan
Here's the way you
advert.
do it. I basically, if I meet somebody from New Zealand, I'm like, hey, will you throw a shrimp on the Barbie for me, knowing that that's wrong? And then when I talk to people from Sydney, I'm like, hey, it's some Kiwis from down under. And they're like, no, Kiwis from New Zealand. It's my standard dad joke. But joking aside, we're really thrilled to go and bring the show on the road. And my team is totally stoked, and we're really excited to see you. If you're interested in coming or competing, go to launchfestivalsydney.com, and I will see you down there. Brian Alvey's coming too.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. All right. We'll see you. Thanks, Emmy Watering producer Jackie, Inside.com president, and GM Austin. And we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Thanks to the sponsors, too. Okay, bye.